All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we don't have any other choice but to destroy this system. I know I'm tired of working at their jobs. I'm tired of them controlling our food, controlling our education, and our children's mind. I'm tired of them controlling all of the resources. And most of all, I'm tired of them controlling justice. Now, I talk about a lot of our brothers and sisters that have been unjustly murdered, and we should know their stories and know their names. But warfare is not just about spilling blood. If you know effective psychological warfare, you won't even have to spill blood. In fact, you can convince that other group to spill their own blood for you. Now, we're expected to just accept white supremacy. And if we say anything about it or try to do anything about it, then we're extremists and we're the terrorists. But we shouldn't care how the dominant society labels us. It's only important how we label us. People with the history that they have no moral ground to stand on. But they try to tell us what's right and wrong and how we should think and feel. And for the dominant society, it's do as I say and not as I do. But it don't matter what they think. We should be ready to defend ourselves at all times. We don't have any other choice but to get on that code. Because they don't have a problem harming any of us. Our elderly, our women, our children, it doesn't matter to them. In Tennessee, back in 1946, the Columbus race riot broke out because a black military veteran tried to defend his own mother. Now, it started after a black woman, Gladys Stevenson, took her radio to a shop to get it repaired. Now, she took it to a white shop, and when she came back to pick it up with the ticket, the clerk at the desk told her it was going to be a lot more money than they told her at first. And since she didn't have that much money, only what they told her, she had to leave. Eventually, after she had to pay double what they told her in the first place, she got her radio back. But the radio didn't even work because he cut the cord and took the batteries. So this black woman, Gladys Stevens, went back again. This time she brought her son with her, James Stevenson, who was a Navy veteran. So this sister, Gladys Stevenson, ended up getting into an argument with one of the clerks, and the argument became heated. So then another white employee, William Fleming Jr., started threatening his sister and walked up on her as if he was about to hit her. So this brother James Stevenson interfered to try to protect his mom. And as they were leaving, the white clerk got mad and pushed his brother James Stevenson in the back of the head. Now, he didn't know this brother James Stevenson was a boxer. And when he hit him, this brother didn't even go down. This brother just turned around and punched him in the face and started beating the hell out of him. And as his brother James was whipping his white boy, at some point he knocked him through the front window of the shop. And when they fell on the street, this brother kept beating him. But then white people walking by saw this brother beating up this white boy. They all started running to attack this brother. Now, when his sister Gladys Stevenson see the crowd attacking her son, of course she's going to try to jump in to help him. She picked up pieces of the glass and started swinging it at anybody who came near them. Eventually outnumbered, the crowd ended up beating them up, and they were both arrested for disturbing the peace. They pled guilty and paid the $50 fine, but as soon as they were released, they were arrested again after the white clerk pressed charges for assault with intent to murder, even though he started the fight. So after word of the fight started getting around, white mobs started gathering at the jail to lynch them. And the black residents, seeing what was about to happen, went down there to protect them. They started arming themselves, and eventually they got James and Gladys out of town. Now, knowing the mob was about to come, the black residents shot out the streetlights so it would be dark. Then they posted up on rooftops waiting for the mob to come. When the mob heard the gunshots for them shooting out the streetlights, the police sent 4 patrolmen into the black neighborhood to see what was going on. But the black residents blocked their path and told them to stop. And when the police refused, they opened fire on the police. And they ended up injuring all 4 of the cops, even the police chief. So then the mob started coming into the black community, but the black residents were waiting on them. And they were shooting them down from the rooftops as they were coming in. The black residents were defending their neighborhood so good, the Tennessee State Guard and Highway Patrol had to be called in. Then by the morning, the State Guard and troopers started moving in with machine guns. And they started shooting at every black person they saw. They were randomly shooting into black homes and businesses. Then they started rounding up black people, taking their weapons and searching their homes. And many of the black residents say they were stealing their money and other valuables. They ended up arresting more than 100 black men and women and charged 25 black people with attempted murder. Of course, the State Guard and police were beating up people they had arrested. And in some cases, they shot and killed them. And nobody was given bail or any legal counsel. Now, the NAACP did send lawyers like Thurgood Marshall, who ended up getting 23 of the 25 defendants off in the first try, even with an all-white jury. And by the end, only one black person, Lloyd Kennedy, was found guilty of shooting at the cops. Gladys Stevenson and her son James were never charged, and no white person was ever charged. But the white residents were pissed that only one black person went to jail for the riot. and as Thurgood Marshall and the people with him were leaving town, they were harassed and pulled over multiple times by cops in unmarked cars. The first time they tried to search their car for liquor and open beer containers. The second time they pulled him over and asked Thurgood Marshall for his license to see if it's up to date. And when his license was valid, they let him go again. So then they pulled him over again for a third time and accused Thurgood Marshall of driving drunk. When they arrested him and put him in a police car, they started driving the opposite direction of the police station and started driving him down a country road. And everybody thought they were about to lynch Thurgood Marshall. But the people who were with him followed the police the whole time. And at one point, the police got out and said, "Why are you following me?" But they kept following him, trying to make sure Thurgood Marshall didn't get lynched. Eventually, they took him to the police station, where a judge saw he wasn't drunk and released him. And they had to escort Thurgood Marshall out of town. Now, all of this started because a black man simply tried to defend his mother. And this is why it's important for us to defend our own. Because they have no problem terrorizing us in front of our family, in front of our parents, in front of our children. In Florida, a brother, Tamar Crawford, was shot by Pensacola police in his own driveway in front of his children. Now, let's see how this brother ended up getting shot by the police in front of his family at his own home.
An officer-involved shooting leaving a man dead in Pensacola. Tonight, we're hearing from a neighbor who says she heard the shots. Now, all of this happening after police say a person disarmed one of its officers during a fight. Let's go now to Michael Warwick, who's joining us live with the information and reaction. Michael?
Lenise, well, since this incident happened around 4:30 in this Pensacola neighborhood, onlookers and friends of this man have been gathering at the scene throughout the afternoon. This happening in the front yard of that home you see behind me. It's so dark out here tonight, but this is about 2 miles northwest of downtown. All of this taking place around 4:30 this afternoon. What we know is that an officer claims to have smelled marijuana coming from the suspect's vehicle, and a chase began around this block. A witness tells me that man pulled into his own front yard, and that's when police say a fight began between the man and an officer. Police say the suspect disarmed an officer, and another officer on scene shot that man. Take a listen to what a neighbor says after she says she heard the shots.
And then I heard the other say, pow, 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 6 times total, till it was 6 shots. And I said, I know they didn't kill this man in front of his children, in front of their family. Why would you do something like that? This is a quiet neighborhood.
Well, as you heard that woman say, she tells me that the man's kids witnessed this shooting as that neighbor described. The suspect in this case later dying at the hospital. No officers were hurt. We have not been able to confirm the identity of the suspect in this case, nor have police revealed who the officers were that were involved in this officer-involved shooting. The case has been turned over to FDLE at this time. Police were declining to comment as that investigation has been turned over, as I mentioned.
Now, this brother, Tamar Crawford, was coming home from a funeral, and he was followed by the police as he pulled up into his driveway. Now, even the police were clear it wasn't a high-speed chase, but the police claimed they smelled weed coming from his car as they passed by. And they said when they were following him, this brother was throwing drugs out the window as he was driving. So then the police said when one of them tried to arrest his brother, he started fighting back and disarmed one of them. Now, Tamar Crawford's girlfriend, who was standing right there, said he wasn't even fighting with the cop. She said this brother was holding his hands up when the cop walked over to him and started punching him in the face. And then 4 cops were on top of him and they started tasing him. His teenage son, who was also standing right there watching, said this brother was trying to get on the ground when one of the cops shot him. Now, the police claim after this brother disarmed one of the cops, then they shot him. But they shot this brother 6 times in the chest right in front of his 4 children. And then after they shot this brother, they started searching his car, looking for any excuse to justify why they killed this brother. Now, after they shot him, the neighbors heard it and started coming out and questioning the police. And they said one of the cops was smirking at their frustration and then aggressively told them to get back. And even though the family had to fight for the video, now we have to trust the cops' word and let them investigate themselves.
The officer-involved shooting in Pensacola will soon head to a grand jury. This news comes about 10 weeks after Tamar Crawford was shot and killed during a traffic stop. News 5's Cody Long is live tonight in Pensacola. And Cody, we understand the grand jury will also be looking at the police department's policies.
Yeah, first the grand jury will determine if that officer violated any criminal statutes, and then they'll take a look at the police department's policies in regards to the use of deadly force. July 5th, Tymar Crawford was shot and killed by a Pensacola police officer. Police say he threw drugs out of the window when they were trying to pull him over for suspicion of marijuana. They tried to arrest him when he got out at Brainerd and C Street. Here's Officer Mike Wood the day it happened.
And a fight ensued after that. The individual attempted and eventually did disarm one of the officers, and the other officer fired his weapon.
This shooting has led to protests in the streets and rallies for justice for Crawford outside PPD headquarters.
We want justice! We want justice!
Neighbors reported hearing 6 shots, which some told us they thought that was excessive. Crawford's fiance spoke to more than 100 people at the first rally in July.
This is really hard for me, and I promise y'all, I thank y'all all for coming out.
Continue prayers for her, y'all, and the children. Continue prayers.
And there is body camera video from that day. It's not been released yet, but it will be shown in court. The state attorney says they expect the grand jury to begin meeting sometime in the next couple of months.
Now, multiple witnesses contradict the cop's story, saying this brother had his hands up when the cop shot him. But of course, the media stand on code will only report the cop side of the story and whatever they tell them to say. And of course, portray this brother as a criminal. Now, whether this brother had a criminal past or not is irrelevant and had nothing to do with why they were pulling him over here. His record doesn't have anything to do with them shooting him in his own driveway in front of his kids because they smell weed. But of course, they're going to stay on code and protect these cops and not release any of their names.
Community marched again to demand justice for Tymar Crawford, who was shot and killed earlier this month by a Pensacola police officer. The state of Florida is investigating the officer's actions. News 5's Cody Long is live tonight at Pensacola Police Headquarters with more on the community's demands.
Yeah, tonight was the second March for Justice, and their goal is to keep the pressure on the local elected officials. They're calling for immediate action from the city and from the police department.
What do we want?
Justice! The chanting continued.
When do we want it? Now!
Through the streets of Pensacola.
Black lives ain't matter here! Black lives ain't matter here!
Calling for justice for Tymar Crawford.
You're getting people engaged, but I want to see them engaged this way with all forms of violence.
Ellison Bennett with the Pensacola chapter of NAACP says he is glad to see these marches, but he encourages everyone to still be patient during the investigation.
I want to see the process take place, and then we go from there.
March organizers are calling for the names to be released for the officers involved, and for them to be terminated, and for restitution for the family. Those likely won't happen, but the city is working to meet their demands for more officer training. Police say July 5th they were pulling Crawford over for suspicion of marijuana when they got into a fight, and Crawford disarmed an officer, leading to the other officer firing shots. Some say if that is true, it was still too much.
It still doesn't justify 6 shots. It still doesn't justify somebody dying. It still doesn't justify a family losing their loved one.
And when the Florida Department of Law Enforcement finishes its report, the city will do its own investigation and the body camera video will be released.
Now, the people are out marching for justice, even though the people they're begging already told them they're not going to get it. The mayor, Grover Robinson, said he will meet one of their demands. He said they'll be reducing arrests for petty weed possession and things like loitering. But then a few days after he said that, he announced he'll be bringing in a federal task force to crack down on drugs and violence. Now, we know these white kids ODing on meth get safe drug houses, and they get events like Drug Take-Back Day. And we know one of his own actually committed violence, murdering somebody, but they justify that. So we already know who these task force are meant to target. His answer to police brutality is more police. But at the end of the day, that's what the system was designed to do. It was never meant to protect us. We don't have any other choice but to protect ourselves. We are all we got. And until we get on code, then they're going to continue to shed our blood.
The video is disturbing and made national headlines. And today, a judge threw the book at a former Atlanta police officer caught on camera attacking an unarmed teen. Investigators say the teen was riding in a stolen car.
Yeah, let's get straight to 11 Alive's Elwin Lopez. She's going to walk us through why it took so long for the sentence to be handed down after the officer pleaded guilty.
Yeah, Ron, Aisha, this sentence comes 3 years after the attack. Matthew John's defense attorney was hoping for a different outcome for her client. She claims PTSD was to blame for the former officer's actions on the day he beat an unarmed teen.
Mr. Johns is someone who is in need of help. He is not in need of incarceration. He is in need of some mental health services.
And take a look at this video. It shows Johns running up to Antravius Payne, stomping on the 15-year-old's head and pressing his knee into Payne's neck. That's what led Johns to this courtroom. Johns' attorney wanted him to get help for his PTSD as part of his sentence. The former IPD officer served 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine before he became a police officer. Johns was since fired and pled guilty to 8 crimes, including aggravated assault. Johns' attorney said today in court her client did indeed go to the VA's office.
He did go, and he didn't follow up, and part of the reason why he didn't follow up is because of the stigma associated with PTSD.
And today, Johns was sentenced to 20 years in jail, but he will have to serve 5 of those. We asked our legal analyst, LaTanya Hines, what might have left to this outcome.
The officer is being held to a higher standard, because when you take that oath of office and when you have that badge, it gives you the authority to be able to use violence in a particular way, and not just, in a irrational way.
And next month, another high-profile case in a police shooting will play out in court. Air Force veteran Anthony Hill was shot and killed in March 2015, more than 4 years ago, by former DeKalb County police officer Robert Olson. Hill wasn't wearing clothes at the time and was unarmed when Olson shot him. Hill's family says the victim was dealing with PTSD at the time. Our legal analyst says it's hard to point out at this time how Olson's fate might compare to that of Johns. Take a listen to what she told me.
So when we have these use of force cases, you have to take them individually for each individual case. The facts are different. The officers, the situation, why they're being called out there can be different.
Olson's trial is set for September 23rd.
What's your name, sir? My name is Tom Campbell. At school. Watch out. That's stuff. Grab it door again. Grab it door again.
At this point, you have probably seen the video, but you haven't heard the story behind it, at least not like this. Denver 7's Gary Bro just met with the mom seen throwing punches at a Denver school bus driver and an aide on that bus, and she tells Gary this was self-defense.
What hurts me the most are the screams. I can hear them in my dreams.
Brandy Martin is haunted by what happened in this video and the actions leading to it.
Pretty terrifying to seeing my daughter be held against her will and not being able to get to her.
This bus taking Denver Green School Northfield students home came to a stop not far from the next bus stop. Denver Public Schools says they were trying to address behavioral issues. Naturally, parents walked over.
So many whys. Why we can't have our children? Why are our children screaming? Why are they crying? Why can't we get to them? A lot of whys. and no answers.
Denver Public Schools policy is to only release students to their parents. The school system says that school employees were trying to explain that before things escalated. Martin says that was not the case, and the mother of 5 got onto the bus.
I feel that as a mother, any mother was going to get on that bus to get their baby.
Martin is immediately held back by a school employee. After a struggle, she climbs over the seats to get to her children.
And so at that point, I feel like I was fighting for my life and these children.
Martin and one of the school employees putting their hands on each other. The employee seen grabbing the back of Martin's head, Martin throwing punches in return. Her girls got off the bus. Martin was arrested for the altercation. The school employees were not. They're now on leave while the school investigates.
It puts an empty spot in your soul and in my heart that anyone would ever do that.
We have also requested the video taken by cameras on board the bus in the hopes it gives us a clear picture of just what happened.
Friday night lights at San Clemente High School. The football team goes on to defeat Lincoln High from San Diego. But a bigger loss, according to students and staff, is what unfolded mid-game.
Alumni and parents were called the N-word multiple times. Cheerleaders who went to the restroom were called dogs, were asked where were their leashes, and were told that they would be dog walked.
The disturbing racial allegations now under investigation by school officials. Monday morning, Generation Justice, a local activist organization, spoke out, along with one of Lincoln High's football coaches.
It's scary to know that here in high school, a safe place, we can't trust that our kids are safe with their own peers.
Lincoln High's principal put out this statement on Facebook Sunday, reading in part, quote, "Our administration team is continuing to investigate the incident, and we are taking this very seriously. Early information also shows our students responded to the racist taunts with maturity and restraint we would expect." Abdul Abakar is a Lincoln student and football player who was in San Clemente Friday night.
What was your take when you initially heard what happened and knowing you were there?
I'm like, whoa, that's like surprising. I've never heard that in my life. When somebody told me, when I got the information, when my football teammates were like, people are saying this on a whole different team, it's like, wow.
The principal of San Clemente hasn't spoken with the media, but released a statement over the weekend to students and staff at Lincoln. Reading in part, quote, "As the principal of San Clemente High School, I work with my faculty, staff, students, families, and community to maintain the highest standards of respect for all individuals. We do not condone racist speech or actions at our school, and we unreservedly condemn hateful rhetoric that targets any person or group."
We turned out to fake passes, supposedly allowing students to use the N-word. Well, they were passed around a middle school in Thornton. That prompted the principal there to take immediate action.
A letter went home to parents this week, but this isn't the first time the school has had an issue like this. 9 News reporter Nelson Garcia joins us now with what's going on at Rocky Top Middle School. Nelson.
Anoush, Tom, the principal tells me that bullying with racial undertones has been an issue at Rocky Top since last spring, and now students are caught passing a different kind of race card. Things that happen in the outside world can find their way into the walls of our schools. On Monday, this letter went home to parents outlining how students were passing around so-called N-word passes, offering permission to use the offensive word. A disturbing discovery for Principal Chelsea Behanna.
Our first thoughts always are the safety of the kids.
She says they were passed along 7th and 8th grade.
The number of kids who saw the N-word passes was somewhere around 20. The number of students who passed it from here to here, I can't really say, you know. And that's the problem.
The solution, she believes, is to take the issue head on.
So we have to talk about race in order to diminish the number of hate crimes.
So every family at Rocky Top Middle School in Thornton received this letter, which offers organizations and resources to help kids understand why the N-word is wrong.
You're not a bad person, you just don't know what you don't know.
You need to condemn this language to make sure that people understand it is not acceptable.
Scott Levin is the regional director for the Anti-Defamation League. He says the idea of this pass is alarming.
Oh, I was just so disappointed when I saw that. It was just painful to see, and what was clearly a child's handwriting, something that could be so awful.
But he applauds what the principal is doing.
When people are silent in the face of such slurs, being made, it almost makes them complicit, that they're condoning it.
She believes the students involved now understand.
We have to fight against the normalization of hate and violence. That's our...
Principal Behana says certain students did receive disciplinary consequences, and she also plans to have them make reparations to the school community in some way.
Alleged racial harassment happening in the Kearney School District, and the family of a teen being targeted says it's gone too far.
We want to warn you, some of what you're about to see is tough to watch. Only on KCTV5 News at 6, KCTV5's Joe Chiodo with the family's plea for help before something else happens.
This all stems from a video that quickly spread through the school on Snapchat. In it, a student is rapping repeatedly, using the N-word. Eventually, that student calls a classmate the N-word. The school sent out this letter here. It warns parents, saying they've had to address racism before, but never to this extent. Now the family of that boy tells me this is just one of several incidents, and the school's been sitting silent for too long.
I can't see my kids have to go through this. This is not right. And I'm like, if I'm going to stand out on a limb, I'm going to stand out on one for them.
Lakeisha and Kyle are the parents of Kearney High School sophomore Kyman. They say he's the student being racially harassed by a classmate in this Snapchat video.
I kind of felt bad for calling Kyman a nigger.
They say after seeing this, he won't be going back to Kearney High.
I just cried because his learning experience now is going to be different because he's at home. This is his first year of high school.
He's a piece of shit and he deserves it.
The incident is not the first.
Getting on the bus to go home and having people like chant the N-word or playing the N-word.
Kyman says if you think racism doesn't exist in 2019,
F the N-word.
Or in your own backyard, think again.
Going to lunch and having like the stereotypical black people foods like a watermelon or like Cheetos thrown at our table.
He says he's been called the N-word in the halls, walking home, even by a member of his own swim team.
No, it's not enough to stay silent.
These are screenshots of racist messages and threats Kyman says he's received from classmates. Take a moment to read some of what he's been sent. Much of it is too vulgar to repeat word for word. One contains curse words making racist reference to lynching and comparing his family to monkeys. That's right, all allegedly sent to a 15-year-old boy. It's just one of nearly a dozen examples the family provided. The N-word is used over and over.
It looks like I'm gonna have to write another one about...
But the video...
The whole school seen this video.
I don't care.
...was the tipping point.
This is a Kearney problem.
Kyman's sister is a senior at Kearney High.
This is something that everyone should care about because it's going to affect us all.
She says it's happened to her too.
It started around my freshman year. I was walking up to receive an award for being class president, and some kids stood up with their Confederate shirts and yelled the N-word.
It did catch us off guard. I have never been called the N-word. So this is different.
Lakeisha says social media has racists hiding behind screens.
The individual knew nothing's going to happen. And the school has played a part in that.
Lakeisha and Kyle's relationship has always been an example of acceptance to their children.
Initially, in our early years of relationship, I'd say I don't see color, and not understanding how people can have so much hate.
But when Kyman and Kyla entered high school, reality hit. Not everyone thinks the way their parents do.
I know people at my job will question me. I know our church may question.
The family says they simply want to educate.
Not judge so quickly.
Not wanting others to have to walk through Kearney High School and feel the way I do.
I requested numbers from the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It turns out of the 261 teachers employed by the Kearney School District in 2018, 0 are black. Of the 3,458 students in the district, 34, or less than 1%, were black.
Oh, I've kept everything.
She says she approached the school board in 2017.
You still have children of color, like my kids, who are still suffering in silence, who are still being harassed.
The family wants the school to develop stricter policies and consequences for racism. They want the school's anti-bullying policy revised to reflect language about racial bullying and cyberbullying.
And that's the change that has not been made. It's just not the N-word.
We've interacted extensively with the Kearney School District, asking about their policies moving forward. And we also asked about consequences for students involved. While not directly addressing what those consequences could be, if any, the district says they will continue to introduce training and programs in the future.
What does that say?
When Steven Weber proposed to girlfriend Kenesha Antoine.
Oh, it's so cute.
He did it with a little bit of daring, writing, "I can't hold my breath long enough to tell you everything I love about you." Her answer, a resounding yes, but Weber never heard the reply. He drowned shortly after this proposal. The Louisiana couple, both 40 years old, had been together for 2 years.
So excited.
And were celebrating their love with a bucket list vacation.
Here we go.
Staying in a partially submerged hotel room about 30 feet underwater. The $1,700 a night room is the centerpiece of the Manta Resort, a luxurious hotel off the coast of Tanzania. Steven's sister Mandy said their family knew Steven was planning to pop the question, but weren't aware of his risky plans.
He wanted this to be a special opportunity for him to propose to Kenesha, whom he loved.
It's still unclear what happened to Weber after the proposal and before his return to the surface. Steven's sister Mandy said he was found alive by passing boaters. One rescuer even performed CPR. In an emotional tribute on her Facebook page, Antoine said, "The best day of our lives turned into the worst in the cruelest twist of fate imaginable. Now Steven's family just wants his remains back home."
This emptiness will never be filled. We love him. We want him back here in the United States. He's just a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful person.
A young life ended just as they hoped to begin a new one together.
A sheriff in North Carolina is accused of ignoring a plot to kill one of his deputies that somebody else was blamed in, and instead encouraging the alleged would-be assassin. Now, mind you, that sheriff is still on the job in office. Brindle Wilkins allegedly thought that the same deputy was about to expose him for allegedly making racist comments. So Wilkins is accused of telling the would-be hitman how you get away with it. The best time to do it. The indictment says, the sheriff said, the only way they find out about things is when people talk. Quote, "You can't tell nobody nothing. Not a thing." Unquote. It was never carried out. Wilkins is accused of obstruction of justice, but he just got reelected by the people last year.
I'm mindful of the need to preserve the public confidence in the integrity of the office of the sheriff, but I'm also mindful that there's an ongoing criminal investigation into these charges. As this situation unfolds, we must remember that Sheriff Wilkins is entitled to due process and that the public is entitled to effective and unbiased law enforcement.
Wilkins is out on $20,000 bond due in court next month, but still on the job.
Journalism professors, journalism students, a lot of students here at Drake are discussing the Carson King story today. They're discussing the power of tweets and what is fair game.
At 24 now, I look back at a lot of the stuff I did in high school and just think, that was boneheaded, I'm glad I grew up and moved on.
Carson King says he's embarrassed and has apologized for some racist tweets when he was 16. The revelation has overshadowed his $1 million fundraising efforts after he's turned into a viral media sensation. But should King's 8-year-old tweets be fair game? We asked Drake University journalism students.
Growing up, my parents have always told me, you need to watch what you say and only say what you mean.
He made a mistake back when he was 16. Now he's an adult. He wants to make a good cause. They should just move on from what he did in the past and shouldn't try to punish him for it.
To me, this is a teaching moment.
Drake's social media journalism professor Chris Snyder is watching the King story closely.
To me, it's one of those incidents where you just kind of see how fast things spread on social media.
He says it's another perfect example of something called cancel culture.
This is kind of the culture we live in now, is someone gets big for whatever reason and instantly people look for that negative thing in their past to bring them down.
Snyder teaches his students about the ethics of that and the importance of tweeting with caution.
To me, that's the big lesson here is assume that everything you post is public and is going to be seen by the world someday. Assume things are going to last forever. And, think before you post.
Snyder is also saying that his students are now going back into their Twitter accounts and deleting any kind of tweets that might be controversial. He says that's good for them and probably good for anybody to consider.
Abandoned by the Register.
That's what former Des Moines Register reporter Aaron Calvin told BuzzFeed that he feels like after being fired from the paper earlier this week. Calvin uncovered some 8-year-old inappropriate tweets by Carson King, but hours later, inappropriate tweets from Calvin's past also surfaced. Calvin said his tweets were embarrassing and taken out of context. Calvin said he was talking to police about death threats he's received when the Register's parent company, Gannett, asked him to resign or be fired. He said he chose to be fired.
All right, it is hump day, of course, but a woman likely doesn't want to be reminded of that because of what happened. This is incredible. A camel sat on her at a truck stop in Louisiana.
That is a sentence I never thought I would hear. Casper the camel weighs around 600 pounds. The woman and her husband were at the Tiger truck stop. The manager says the couple was chasing their dog around, tossing treats his way. One of those treats went through the fence. The dog, who's deaf, then went in to grab it, so they went to grab the dog. Well, Casper, the camel, got spooked and went for them and eventually sat on this woman.
Never in my life. Never.
This is the only camel in Iberville Parish, and I'm sure this is the only camel that ever been bitten by a human on his testicle.
He's the only camel in Iberville Parish. Manager Pamela Bose says each week she sees hundreds of visitors.
He's very, very, very laid back, friendly. He doesn't like someone like right up in his face and stuff, so that's why when we go in pairs, and truthfully, as long as you're sweet to him, he's going to be sweet to you.
But he had a wild encounter with one visitor, according to the Iberville Parish Sheriff's Deputy report. A Florida woman, 68-year-old Gloria Lancaster, was chasing after her hearing-impaired dog when she followed it into the camel's enclosure. The Florida woman crawled past a barbed wire fence to try and get the dog when the camel set on her to protect himself, and she bit him to break free.
The camel wasn't hurt in the incident. I think the female was transported to the hospital.
The woman was later ticketed for trespassing after she was released from the hospital.
Why would you go underneath a barbed wire fence and another fence behind it?
I might feel kind of funny saying this on TV, but she actually bit him in his private area. That's about as nice as I could put it.
Oh, goodness. What? I did not expect it to go there.
She bit the camel?
Yes, she bit the camel. Casper did get off of her, but the couple actually got 2 tickets for trespassing and not having the dog on a leash. Imagine this all happening to you, then getting a ticket as well. Yeah. Well, the woman is going to be okay. The camel is doing fine. So the story has a happy ending, which makes me feel a little bit better about chuckling about the whole thing, but that had to be really scary.
Well, I wrote this song for the Christian youth. I want to teach kids the Christian truth. If you want to reach those kids on the street, then you got to do a rap to a hip-hop beat. So I gave my sermon an urban kick. My rhymes are fly, my beats are sick. My crew is big and it keeps getting bigger. That's 'cause Jesus Christ is my nigga. Woo! He's a life changer, miracle arranger, born to the virgin mom in a manger. Water to wine, he's a drink exchanger, and he died for your sins. I preach the word, that's my gig, and I rhyme better than Notorious Big. All the other MCs, I wish them well, but if you live in sin, you burn in hell. Now I'ma pass the mic to my lovely wife. She's a fly MC and the light of my life. So to bust a rhyme without further ado, take it away, Mary Sue.
Jesus Christ is my nigga. He's the son of the original G. And he was sent to earth to elucidate the way that we should be. What? Like if another MC says you're a freak, you're a lame butt rapper and your rhymes are weak. I don't get mad and I don't critique. I forgive him and turn the other cheek. I don't blaspheme and I don't brag. I don't cuss and my pants don't sag. I do exude a little Christian swag and I'm proud to be an American.
Jesus Christ is a nigga. Let his light shine through ya. Let his love pop a cap in your butt and say hallelujah. Jesus Christ is a nigga. He's a homie MCJC, you see. He's an honest, caring, peace-loving nigga like me. If you do drugs and you think you're cool, you need to come to Sunday school. Put those drugs in a garbage can. Stand up tall, you're a Christian man. Word up. I'm freestyling.
Hit me.